The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. We got ourselves a banger of a show this week. I am excited for it. My excitement and my joy continues to rise. Even as we do this, though, that joy is being combated by the fact that the Dolphins, my Miami Dolphins, are playing the Buffalo Bills right now. And every time I look down at my phone, the Bills have scored another touchdown. Barring some sort of unexpected fortune, I think my Dolphins are going to lose this game to a much superior team. And that hurts me a little bit. But I am assuaged by how great of a show I know we're going to have today. It's going to be a blast. Our guest this week, joining us in the second segment, Neil Sheehan is the CEO of Vocana, a music streaming service built specifically for independent artists and their fans. I am quite interested in learning about the Vocana model. It is currently in beta, a public beta, so you could check it out right now, but we don't know a lot about Vocana yet. It's still going to get out into the world. But I want to learn more because what I have heard of this platform very much intrigues me. It is a music streaming service that has been built specifically for independent artists, independent music, and their fans. It has tools for indie artists that specifically help them grow their audience, build relationships with their fans. And it has a royalty model that I've said for years on this program would be more fair to indie artists, a user-centric royalty model. That is the centerpiece of Vocana. Let me tell you something about myself, viewers and listeners. All right, I'm a simple man. I like my beer cold, I like my coffee hot, and I like my royalties user-centric. And so any platform that finally wakes up and embraces user-centric royalties, treating every streaming service subscriber as their own royalty pool so that my royalties are not subsidizing some other person's listening habits, so the money I pay can go right to the artists I love. That's a better model. It's a more fair model for indie artists, and I'm very excited that Vocana embraces it. And I'm excited to talk to Neil Sheehan all about that and just all about how cool this platform is generally. Excited to hear more about that and excited to speak with our co-host this week. Always a joy when she joins us. Katie Zaccardi's here. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Ryan.
It is so good to see you. How have you been?
You know, same old. I do have a little bit of a cold today, so I apologize if I'm sniffly into the mic. I will do my best not to do that.
You said that earlier before the show that your neck of the woods has run into that time of year where you never know if you're just sick or is it just the way the world is right now.
Yeah.
Like your allergies are kind of flaring up.
And I have really bad allergies, so and very sensitive sinuses. So like my sinuses will just become inflamed for funsies sometimes. And like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's doing it. So it's that time of the year. Hate to say it. And I didn't know this, but apparently Nashville is really, really bad for allergies because it's a dust bowl or something. So there you have it. But
see, now, if you lived in my neck of the woods in Florida, you'd never have to worry about this because when we're sick, it's always sick. It's never allergies. Why? One, because like the weather never changes. It's always hot and miserable. We never have like allergy season. And two, as of now, like no one in the state's vaccinated. So we're all just going to get sick. And that's just what we're dealing with. Gotta love Florida.
Yeah. Classic.
You, my friend, have been busy on TikTok lately. I always love when I'm scrolling through my FYP and I get greeted with another hit video from Katie Zaccardi giving some pretty cool advice, some neat perspective, for independent creators. That's always been the centerpiece of what you do. It's always what's endeared me to your content. And you had a pretty interesting video recently that I'd love for you to share with the class. You were talking about how many creators suffer from a fear of being perceived. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, and I could go on and on about this, so please stop me whenever. But I will start from the beginning, which is like 3 years ago. And you might have noticed, Ryan, that I have not posted in a while. Like, you have not seen a video of me, at least from that account, which is my Out to Be Coaching account, in a hot second. And the reason for that is because I moved to Nashville about 3 years ago, and about a year or so in, I just really started to struggle with continuing content. Like, I had been doing probably 2 or 3 years at that point of showing up daily, if not multiple times a day, and constantly creating content. And it wasn't ever very much of a struggle for me. I liked doing it. I didn't have a huge problem with doing it. Of course, there were a couple times here and there where, you get a backlash or people disagree with you, which is never the most pleasant thing. But somewhere along the lines, when I started to really come out of pandemic on everything is online, and I started to go a little bit back into the real world, and I was also making new friends and just really establishing my life in Nashville, it's like I got camera shy. That's the easiest way to describe it. But I also was going through a lot of transitions in my life, in my work, and creatively too, where I was putting more of a focus on writing music than I was on my business. So all of that to say, I had a lot of trouble showing up, and I needed to take a step back. And after some examination, I realized that I was just having a lot of trouble with being the idea of being perceived. I'm not really sure if that came before the break or if it came during the break, but I think somewhere along the lines, I started to get really uncomfortable with the thought of people just seeing me. And this is where I got weird too. It's when we were, I started my business before the pandemic, but a lot of it was built during it. And so everyone was online. But then when I started to, when I moved here and I was still doing it, I would run into people who would be like, "Oh my God, I saw your video." And I'd be like, "Why are you watching me at work? That's my job." I'm I don't come in your office and look at you. And it just felt very exposed in a way, because I'm okay, I want musicians to see this, but I don't want my random neighbor to see this and be like, "What the heck is she doing out here on the internet?" Which is that is not a good mindset to have. You should be proud of what you're doing. But point of the story is that was something that I had to recognize and work through. And not too long after, I realized that a lot of the clients that I was working with and coaching also struggle with this. So what's extra ironic is that I actually recorded that video probably in April. And
what?
I know. I know. And I only posted a few weeks ago or last week because
you had a fear of being perceived video being perceived.
And it's not even that at that point I was afraid of being perceived, but I didn't feel ready to be back. I think that was all I had to say. And then it felt weird to just drop that and then peace out again. Cause at that time, I didn't have much else to say on that account, although I did start posting on a different account. So, but yeah, I think it is really hard because, and I get this question a lot from musicians too, where they're like, "I don't know how to find the balance because people say to be vulnerable, but I don't want to share my whole life and deep, dark secrets on the internet." But you also do have to have a certain level of vulnerability or just truth, honesty, so that people can see that you're not playing a part, or, they can see who you really are and resonate with you. And that's always really tricky. And I think that somewhere in the middle of that is where the magic is. But if you are afraid to be seen at any part of that, then it becomes really hard to share anything at all. And it can become easy to either hide behind a facade or just never post because you don't want to and you're afraid of people.
I this is a very interesting thing to unpack because, at the surface, the people who become creators and, make it their job or at least a lucrative side gig for themselves, being perceived is the goal. You're trying to achieve some measure of fame so that people continue to consume your stuff. So having a fear of the very thing that will be the thing that allows you to pay your rent with your content seems counterintuitive. But I agree with you that a lot of creators that I've spoken to have this same fear. I remember even you and me having a conversation some months ago on this program, and I know your dog agrees, having a conversation some months ago on this program where I talked about how I like the number of listeners and followers I have on this podcast right now. And I don't necessarily want it to grow because like we have a cool community. This gig that I do gives me what I need in terms of networking and meeting people and keeping me up to date on the industry and giving me a nice little community. But like if this grew to like millions of fans, suddenly I can't walk outside the door anymore. Sure. And you start attracting not just the people who like you in your comments, but like the weirdos and the crazies who make your life miserable. And, maybe that part of that's in the fear of being perceived is knowing that eventually if you get big enough and you get enough followers, you start getting that negative crap too.
Yeah. I think there's so many layers to this because I also think that there's a couple root causes, and one of them is being able to really stand behind what you're doing. And then like very closely related to that is having self-confidence and like self-love. Because I think if you don't have those two things, then you're definitely going to be afraid of being perceived. And the first part, like I think I attribute that as a big part as to why I had my needing to step back era, because I suddenly was like really not super enthusiastic about what I was talking about. I didn't feel in complete alignment with like the online coaching world as it was. I had a lot of things going on behind the scenes that I like wanted to kind of speak up about, but wasn't necessarily ready to do that either. So it led to me just not feeling like I could stand 100% behind my work. And then I didn't want to like show up with that being the case. And then the second part, and I see this a lot with musicians, is this like imposter syndrome, just lack of confidence, lack of self-love, lack of self-worth, whatever you want to call it. But this feeling of I'm not good enough, of, there's a lot of other good people out there. I don't want to post and then people think it's bad. But like ultimately what it comes down to is not believing in yourself or not believing that you are good enough to be seen in the first place, and not even considering the fact of like, it feels weird to like be out there in front of people. But again, just going back more to that self-belief aspect of it. So again, so many layers, like I could go on and on, but this is why I love mindset coaching too, because I teach strategy. I could teach strategy all day. Like I can tell people, and I do tell people how to put themselves out there, but time and time again, working with indie musicians, I find that they constantly run up against blocks or delays, or they know what to do, but they just really struggle to actually do it. And usually it's because there is something going on mentally or emotionally like this that's really stopping them from going for it.
And so real quick, and we'll leave it there on this point, but I think for the viewers and listeners out there who this is resonating for them, who are hearing you describe this particular condition and saying, oh, I'm in this photo and I don't like it. What advice might you have for people who have this fear of being perceived and how they can sort of work on it?
Well, it's interesting that you say photo too, because I see this probably getting worse because everything is so video based now. And I think it is a lot harder to be on video. But I mean, what advice do I have? Well, number one, take a step back, like do some journaling or talk it out with someone to see if maybe you are struggling with some of the other things. Like literally asking yourself the questions, am I standing behind what I do 100%? Am I feeling like I am am I being in integrity when I go to post with my strategy? Does that feel like it is in complete alignment with who I am and what I'm out here to do? Does the music I'm making feel like it's in complete alignment with me? And then also just reflecting on like, do I believe in myself? Honestly,
Hmm.
I believe in myself. And if those two things are true, then we can go from there. But if they're not, that's honestly where I would start. And don't be afraid to do two things. Number one, don't be afraid to get support. Like, I work with people. I would recommend therapy for people as well for something like this. Any combination of like a therapy or like mindset coaching, I think can be really powerful. Even like energetic work if you're into that stuff, which I definitely am. And then number two, also don't be afraid to just do it. And I heard this on a podcast, on an astrology podcast randomly. But the host said, you cannot find your voice without speaking. And I think that this also really encompasses that, because sometimes people hold themselves back when it comes to posting content because they're just not sure if they 100% know exactly how they want it to go and what they want to say and how they want to do it. And they are afraid to be perceived in that like figuring out phase. But there's going to have to be some give and take. And I think that even as you're working through this, sometimes you just have to do it. Sometimes you're going to be afraid and you have to do it anyway. And you have to just put it out there and see how it goes and get more comfortable with it, because a lot of content specifically is flexing the muscle and getting used to it and having it get easier the more that you do it. So that would be my starting point of advice.
Yeah, do it, but I'm scared. Do it scared.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move now to a story about music discovery. A new report from Media Research says that TikTok is great for exposure, but maybe not as great as we would hope for conversion when it comes to exposing music fans to music. Particularly the case with young music fans. While TikTok has been shown to drive visibility, data suggests that it often fails to turn casual listeners into actual fans or streamers. In fact, the report shows that only 9% of 16 to 24-year-olds who hear a song on TikTok become fans of that artist, and fewer than a third even stream the artist's music on a streaming service. Conversely, platforms like YouTube and general streaming services are still a more favorable method for music discovery in terms of conversion ahead of TikTok. The report also warns that the industry's obsession with TikTok may be overlooking the high percentage of listeners who don't use it to find music. As Media puts it, quote, TikTok is driving more TikTok consumption rather than streaming consumption, end quote. Artists may be better off not putting all of their eggs in the TikTok basket and also focusing on platforms that pay and convert. This study does confirm a lot of what I've generally suspected about TikTok. As much as we have, intuitively we say, oh, this is a great platform for indie artists. Look at all these artists that are blowing up on TikTok. But then these artists like try to have a live show and they can't sell out like a 50-seat, bar, even though they have, a million TikTok fans. And so, the data seems to be bearing out what I think a lot of us are knowing intuitively, which is that TikTok doesn't seem to be delivering on conversions as much as we would hope, particularly with this very core 18 to 24 audience that we really want to drive into music.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this, not surprisingly. And the first thing that came to mind was that a couple years ago, I had a neighbor who was in a band, like a boy band, and they had 5 million followers on TikTok. Huge audience. And he would constantly tell me, we would like chit chat in the dog park, and he would constantly tell me that even though they had so many followers, it essentially meant little to nothing when it came to getting people out to their shows or getting people to listen to their music. And I kind of knew that to be true, but I found it really interesting that even at such a large scale, because you would think 5 million people, well, there's got to be at least some people who will come, but they were still struggling even at that scale. And I think there's a couple reasons for it. I think that number one, a lot of getting people to listen to your music is hearing it repetitively, which
Mhm.
is why I think radio and even Spotify works. Because if like you're getting a song on your Spotify daily playlist every day, you're hearing it, it's repetitive. If it's a part of a TikTok trend, it's repetitive. But the second thing is that I don't think a lot of artists know how to make that transition well. Like I think it is possible to have people come, but I don't think artists are like selling, I'll call it, well or at all on TikTok. So there's no like funnel, there's no like getting people to other parts of your music because they're not even talking about it. So that's my like quick take. But I find artists on TikTok all the time. Like that's how I found Chapel Roan. And also on Spotify though, because I found Chapel Roan because I heard Casual on Spotify, or sorry, on TikTok, and I heard literally 5 seconds of that song, and I was like, I'm about to be obsessed with this song. Like I know I'm about to be obsessed. This is going to be my new favorite song for the rest of my life. And then I listened to it, and it was amazing. And then My Kink is Karma, which is another song of hers, then started to come up in my Spotify. And once I put two and two together that it was the same person, I actually then followed her. But every other artist, like I'm thinking of Ceilings by Lizzie McAlpine or Sue Me by Audrey Hobart, which is a more recent trend. A lot of those songs, like I was turned on to those artists because they had a trending song, which means I was hearing it on my For You page over and over and over again, but not just one time. You know what I mean? So I think that repetitive nature is kind of make or break in a lot of that if you're not going to be selling and pitching your song.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, you know, I think you make a very good point about the terrestrial radio model and why it's so good for music discovery, because terrestrial radio will play a song to death.
Yeah.
And eventually, like, you have no choice but to, that you
And
become
you either love it or hate
interested in
it at that
that.
point.
Yeah. But they'll play it enough times that you'll be able to make a decision one way or another. And TikTok doesn't give you that. I mean, if you want like sort of the easy answer for why TikTok's a bad platform for music discovery, it's because TikTok builds it that way. It's not good for TikTok's business for you to love an artist so much that you leave TikTok to consume them on another platform, right? They're going to make you love that artist just enough to go, this sounds cool for 8 seconds in this song. All right, now let's go watch the next video. I'm sorry, 8 seconds in a video. Now I'm going to watch the next video, right? Yeah. They don't want you to love that artist enough that you're going to leave the platform and go do a bunch of stuff on Spotify. And so it's all about quick hits with that music, isolating just 8 seconds of it that tend to often be like the best 8 seconds of the song. And then you go listen to the full song. And you're like, oh, I just like the 8 seconds that I heard on TikTok.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that's happening in this study, because they do highlight young people and that young people are, discovering music less on TikTok. I think it's just that young people, and I bet if I looked at the data, it would bear this out. I think young people are just discovering music less than other generations.
Yes.
Partially because they are, they tend to listen to music as just background for their 8-second videos. And they are not listening as much to platforms that are more conducive to music discovery, like terrestrial radio, which is hemorrhaging listeners in the young people audience. There are probably young people listening to this right now saying, what is terrestrial radio, Grandpa? Like, what do you mean by terrestrial? So back in the day, kids, we had this thing called FM, and it was just the bee's knees. So I think that has a lot to do with it now. Like, kids don't, God, I can't believe I just said it like that. Kids don't see music as this thing I'm going to listen to for the sake of listening to it on its own. It's just something that's part of videos that they're watching on TikTok. And they're not listening. They're not on the other platforms that are more conducive to music discovery to the same extent.
I agree with you. And I even find that true about myself. Like, I think about when I was in college, I feel like I was...
You want to be young and hip so bad. I get it.
No, I'm saying I'm old. I don't know.
Me and my fellow kids, we're not listening to music the way old man Ryan does.
I'm saying maybe I am saying I'm trying to be young because when I was in college, I feel like I was discovering music more. And now I'm just like, I'll just be lazy and go on TikTok and let that do it. And then even on Spotify, like I am very set in my ways. So sometimes when Spotify like gives me a playlist and they put new songs on there, I'm like, how dare you? How dare you? Like, I don't want to listen to this song I've never heard in my life. Get this out of my face. So like, I think I hear what you're saying, and I feel like it is harder. Also, when you're scrolling on TikTok, like your brain rotting, you're getting your quick dopamine hits. When it to go over to Spotify or any other listening platform, it's like that's like a whole separate you have to really like a song to want to completely change what you're doing to then like and change the pace of what you're doing to listen to music. So I don't know what the solution is or if there is one, but
Do you have any theories on why this report seems to indicate that YouTube is a better platform for music discovery statistically than TikTok is? Because I'm struggling to find a satisfying reason, right? Because they're both video platforms. So my same theory of like when your music is just being used in service of video, it's not going to facilitate discovery as much, but people seem to be discovering artists on YouTube.
I do not get that. And like I actually would love to have someone else research this and give me the data because I mean, I have a few people that I can think of who really love YouTube and spend most of their time on YouTube and like have YouTube Premium. But even just looking around at my network and the way I consume, I am like, who is on YouTube? Like, who is like, and then even a step further, even if you are on YouTube, how would they possibly be like serving you random new music? Like, my YouTube algorithm is like, oh, we're going to give you the 50 karaoke tracks that you've listened to in your car one time, like over and over again. Like, it's not like playing like new things for the next video. It's going through everything I've ever watched before, even if I watched it once, but it's going to do all that before it gives me something new. So
YouTube's not trying to broaden your horizons.
No.
Like our girl Katie, she's set in her ways.
But I blame YouTube. No. It's like, here, sing I Dreamed a Dream karaoke for the 1500th time, won't you? And I'm like, yeah, I will. Thank you. But that not only that, YouTube Shorts, like I don't find to be a compelling platform. So I am really surprised by that. And maybe I'm just not like with the times and I'm not on YouTube in that way. So I'm not seeing it, but I have a really hard time believing that.
The best thing I can think of as I listen to this, I think the two most reasonable rationales or explanations I can come up with for that data, and maybe we'll ask Neil Sheehan about this because he's been working in the music streaming space for long enough that he might know a lot about what converts people and makes people fans on streaming platforms. But the two things I can think of are maybe one, with YouTube, you're talking about longer videos, so the viewer has more of a chance to get acquainted with an artist. If you are watching them play their entire song in their bedroom on a guitar for 4 minutes, you are more likely to fall in love with that artist than if you are watching them on an 8-second clip on TikTok before you immediately scroll to the next video to get your dopamine hit. Yeah. There might be something there. And I think what might also be being tracked there is my other theory that younger generations are just discovering music less, and they're using music less as a tool. They're not trying to find new artists on TikTok or anywhere. And I think that YouTube's audience probably skews older than TikTok's audience. So I think maybe what you're seeing there is that YouTube has an audience that is just more generally willing to discover music because they're older, and TikTok has a younger audience that is less inclined to be trying to aggressively find new artists to love and listen to.
That makes sense. I can buy that. And I think maybe part of it also has to do with attention span, where like when you are on TikTok inherently, we know it's just killing our attention spans. And maybe if you are someone who watches YouTube, you have a slightly longer attention span, and then you're able to like remember what you just listened to and want to dive deeper. But I still, quite frankly, I'm like, what old, like I'm thinking of my parents. I'm like, my parents aren't on YouTube like randomly discovering music. So I still even have a slightly hard time believing that, but what you have just said does make sense in terms of why or how it would be happening.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there for sure. I think it's pretty interesting. And I'm I'm I will say as a person who is rooting for independent artists who want to see independent music continue to thrive, I'm not sure, what the route is, because that is where art is going, right? It's going into short form video. I mean, with every generation, we are consuming art in smaller and smaller bites.
Yeah,
and
for better
and
or
so
worse.
if you're telling me that like the smallest bites to consume music in are not ways that are conducive to discovering artists, that's a terrifying prospect. And all that's meant to say is, boy, I'd hate to be running a music streaming platform right now.
Yeah.
You know, on a completely unrelated note, stick around for our guest in the next segment, who's running a music streaming platform. We're going to be joined by Neil Sheehan, the CEO of Vocana, who, to his credit, has built a music streaming platform specifically geared toward helping independent artists find fans through streaming services. So we certainly love that goal. And in all seriousness, I am excited to hear more about the Vocana model. It's going to be a blast. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be back in 2 minutes with Neil Sheehan. Keep checking out Break the Business. We'll be right back. Break the Business is presented in cooperation with Ryan A. Kairalla, PA. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA is a law firm providing transactional entertainment legal services, including contracts, business formation, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida. rkpalaw.com.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Ryan Kairalla here with Katie Zaccardi. I know I say it all the time, but I just can't say it enough. I cannot speak enough good things about the various partners that help bring this show to you wherever you check it out. We love our friends at Slam Radio, who are our satellite radio home. We love Volume.com, our live streaming platform, where we are part of a really cool lineup of programs that are geared towards helping people become better music fans and more knowledgeable about the music industry. We love those folks. Wherever you're checking out Break the Business, whether it's on those platforms or on all major podcast platforms, we're so glad that you are. Thank you for hanging with us, and thank you for telling a friend. Let's go ahead and bring out our guest this week. He is the CEO of Vocana, a music streaming service built specifically for independent artists and their fans. Vocana is currently in public beta now, and you can find out more about our guest's work by visiting Vocana, VOCANA.co. We are happy to welcome Neil Sheehan onto Break the Business. Hi, Neil.
Now, since the last segment was, I would hate to be running a DSP right now.
Yeah, no, that was just me being a little silly there.
It's totally fine. It was I was thoroughly enjoying the conversation you guys were having about the new media research, because I was very much in depth reading that, and there's quite a lot to unpack there, and I think one of the reasons that we created Vocana a while ago, because we knew some of this research was coming out and what people were gleaning from it. Hence the reason we kind of pivoted or created something more for independents on a streaming service that would keep them all in a flywheel effect instead of in separate silos, like having just TikTok and you only listening to that song for about 8 seconds and then moving on from somewhere else. So you could continue that discussion. I'd love to jump in there, or whatever you'd like to discuss.
You know what? I would like to have you jump in, even more on that? I mean, can you kind of build off of sort of what we were talking about before? When you look at this report,
Yeah.
that's saying that the main way that young people are being exposed to music right now is TikTok. And for whatever reason, that platform is not doing as good of a job as other platforms like TikTok or like YouTube are at converting people into fans of artists. And that young people generally are just not discovering music to the same extent that older generations are. When you see data like that, does it terrify you if you're in the DSP business, or do you see your platform as a solution to this problem?
Look, I think let's take a step back. I think there's two ways to look at a music fan. There is the fly-by-night fan that's into the virality of an 8-second song and is just looking for the next, whether it be a K-pop song or the next Taylor Swift song. But then there are young people or even mature people that are looking to be crate diggers, right? People that actually want to listen to more than just one song. They're trying to find the next new genre or the next big star. So I don't want to say the research was wrong. I think it was right. But I think TikTok is also a platform that you both discussed where it is set up for like just viral nature, right? Like they are not trying to be a music streaming subscription service. And nor is YouTube, right? I mean, yes, they have a premium subscription service, but I think if you take a step back and look at what MySpace did, if you can remember those days in 2009, they had the bands and the fans all on one platform with a streaming service, and you were socially connected with that artist at the same time, right? So you weren't now spread out over multiple platforms. You could find a band through your top 8 friend network, listen to that band very quickly, and then go comment and find that band within seconds and find other music that they did. Now that's much harder. If you're on TikTok and you find an artist, you sometimes now have to open up your Spotify account. You may now have to open up an Instagram account. You may have to open up their merch page, et cetera, which makes that kind of flywheel effect gone. And, you have to do multiple steps to become a fan to that artist. So that's what we've kind of created in Vocana. I can speak to that a little bit more here in a second. But, again, looking at the media research, in its face, I don't think TikTok would be upset with that. And I don't think that's their business per se, right?
Yeah, they want to keep you right where you are. They don't want you going off to Spotify.
They don't want to send you off platform to go look at the next artist. They just want to pump you the next artist in the next 8 seconds. So I firmly believe that there are several different types of music aficionados out there. Again, there's the people that just want the next top song to listen to and the next band to find. And then there's those crate diggers out there that want to take time and actually find bands, new songs, new genres. They go to live shows. Like Katie was saying, she had somebody that had 5 million fans, right, on a platform, but couldn't get anybody to a show. That harkens back to data as well. TikTok does not give you your listeners. So you cannot actually market to those people where your live shows are or when they're going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes it very hard on some of these platforms for an artist to break through outside of just an 8-second viral clip. And again, a reason why we created Vocana was giving data back to artists. Now an artist, every time they are streamed, they get first-person contact information, like an email address from all of their listeners. So now you could potentially go, if you have 5 million artists, and find which city you are the biggest out of those 5 million and go play a show there, right? Out of those 5 million artists, they may have found that Seattle was their home market. That's where they should have played the show. So yeah, again, I think the media report is super important for everybody. But on the streaming side, there's been such a maturation point of us learning how streaming started and where it's at today that there is going to be this bifurcation of different streaming services that cater to different people and different fan bases.
Well, let's talk about the DSP industry a little bit, because you've spoken of Vocana as being a solution in this space. So let's talk about what you think the problem is. I would say you and I are in alignment that the major DSP platforms out there, your Spotify's, your Apple Music's, don't do a particularly good job at servicing indie artists, at getting indie artists paid a meaningful amount. Can you reflect a bit on what you think makes the major leading streaming services kind of a raw deal for indies?
Yeah, let me give you a brief background on who I am and then what Vocana is and the solutions to problems, because I think that will set the table for why I think some of these services do not help independent artists. I started a concert promotion firm when I was 24. I'm 50, literally in my attic, and I was booking independent artists in VFW halls, right? Like 50-person VFW hall, $5 a show, come on in. And we gradually had 25 people working for us, and we were booking 5,000 cap rooms, all independent artists. And then we started managing those artists. The next thing you know, we have 17 record deals. We have a couple recording studios. So we became this incubator for independents, and we saw the problems that they were having. And then in 2009, I got approached to start an indie label, and I had an indie label until 2020. So when I was approached by the owners of Vocana, they wanted to start essentially an independent streaming service. And the reason they wanted to do that were they were live music aficionados. They would go out to a show and see a tip jar on a stage and wonder, why do these bands need a fucking tip jar? Sorry, there's no reason they should need a tip jar, right? They're on Spotify. And what they kept hearing was, we don't make any money. So when they asked me to come on board as the president, it was these pain points that I thought needed solutions, right? Like if you're going to build a business, you better have solutions to problems. So to get back to your point, revenue was one of them. The pro rata model we've seen over the years doesn't work for an independent artist. If you look at just highline metrics, 99.8% of all the artists on Spotify make less than $10,000. I mean, think about that. There's 200 million tracks. There's 12 million artists. And 99.8% of them don't make $10,000. I mean, that's, you have to make, it's 25,000 streams will get you $100. So these bands are not even making minimum wage. So the revenue was one thing. If somebody could come out with a true user-centric model, right, where your $10 subscription goes directly to the artist you listen to, that kind of gets rid of all of the pro rata where your $10 goes into this big pie, and no matter who you listen to, MGK, Drake, and Taylor Swift are going to take the larger portion of that. So that was a big problem for us to solve, because nobody was out there really trying to do a true user-centric model. They had tried to do artist-centric. SoundCloud's tried to do that. Deezer's tried to do that. But when you have major labels within your system, none of them like getting away from the pro rata model, because they essentially,
it works for them.
Correct. So having an indie only, where you're licensing just independent content, you can get away with trying a user-centric system. So that was one of the big problems we wanted to solve. The other one, what I just talked about, was data, right? You go build up this huge following on Facebook or this huge following on Spotify, but you have no idea who your listeners are, right? You get a heat map if you're lucky. Or if you're on Facebook, then you have to add boost to your friends that you've built up. On Vocana, we give first-person listener data right back to the artist. So if Katie's on, she can see all the profile pages of who is there. She can direct message those people, the city, state, do whatever she wants to do to market to them. And those people can also opt in to give her an email address. So anybody that actually listens to you, now you can create your own, like old school, where you used to have on a tour date, your book in front of people at a merch booth and signing up. So that was another problem we wanted to solve, because it was a pain point for indies. And then kind of the unfair competition. Most independent artists cannot get on a playlist. And if they do, it may move the needle for a week or two, but they don't stay there. And they're always going to compete against MGK, Taylor Swift, or whomever for those playlists. So we thought, if we're going to be indie, and we're going to be indie-centric, we better just license content from true independent artists and independent distributors, DistroKid, CD Baby, etc. So anytime music comes up in somebody's playlist or it's shared, it's true discovery, right? Because 99.9% of the time, you're only going to get artists that you've probably never heard of. It's not going to be the 4 or 5 million top tracks that Spotify puts up, because those are major label content that we won't have. So that was the third kind of issue that we wanted to solve. And then fourth was what I kind of said at the beginning, was music's become kind of boring. You put like Spotify on in the corner, or Deezer or Tidal or Apple, and then you go do 4 or 5 other platforms. MySpace had this social impact, right? Where a band had a profile page, an artist had a profile. I mean, the artist had a profile page and a fan with a streaming player on the bottom, and it created the flywheel where you just stayed there. So those were some of the pain points that we thought, those are the ones independent artists were having the hardest problems with. And if you can build something around those and give a platform to independent artists and DIY and emerging artists to build their fan base, build up their data and get paid, and not have to compete in playlists with other major label people, and stay on one platform versus sending out a link tree to all of your fans to go everywhere else, why wouldn't people stay there and come there and try to crate dig and find the newest bands?
Let's talk about your third point there about creating a streaming platform that is exclusive to indie music, and you're not going to have major label music out there. I'm sure you have heard the critique or the concern that some people might have when they hear about that, and say, if you don't have the major label music on your DSP, you're not going to get a lot of audience. Because I think a lot of people might discover indie music by going on a platform that has Taylor Swift and it has MGK. And then those people get you in the door, and then you wind up discovering indie artists that resemble Taylor Swift and MGK, but you would have never discovered those artists if you didn't have, the lost leaders of the, Taylor Swifts to bring you into the door. Do you think that's a legitimate concern, or do you think that, having a place where the indie artists are is going to bring people in?
It's absolute. I did a podcast earlier today where somebody said, you got to go where the party's at, right? And if the party is at where Spotify and all these people are, why would you compete against those people? I take it a step back. We're not trying to compete. We're not trying to be a DSP per se. We're more of a social music streaming platform, right? I would say Vocana is more like a Bandcamp. These are where your indie fans and your indie artists are going to try to get found or to communicate with each other, right? Spotify obviously is a place where you're going to hear music, and maybe the AI algorithm spits out something similar to that. But that will never please the major labels, and the major labels will always own the playlist, no matter what people say. So while you may get some recommendations, if we create a service that's either supplementary or complementary to Spotify, like I will never stop using Spotify. I listen to major label artists. But if there's somewhere I can go to discover music or help my favorite independent artists get them paid better and give them data, why wouldn't I do that? So there is a segment of people that will do that. And that's the segment that we will go after. We're not looking to try to be the next Spotify or Deezer or Tidal.
Something I find really interesting is this aspect of the fan connection, because that's really unique. And I feel like that's something that's been lacking for a really long time. You don't have a lot of places where the fans can be in one place. Like even Bandcamp exists, but nobody's really using it anymore. Like, let's be honest. And so my question for you actually is, how are the fans reacting to this? Because as an artist, of course, it's pros of like, I can get the data, I can connect with people, but do you find that fans are eager to participate in that? Or are they, because I do feel like we are now in an age where it's like, everyone has our data and I don't want to share my data with people and I don't want to get on another email list, just as consumers in general. But do you find that that is the case or resistant from the fan perspective? Or are they excited to be able to have sort of like a closer knit relationship with these indie artists and feel like they're championing them?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think, again, it goes back to the first point I made at the beginning, where there's two different type of fans. There's the fans that are just trying to find the next K-pop demon hunter, right? And probably don't care about a social interaction. Maybe they have some fandom like what you could call a Swiftie, but they're just going to stay in that one silo. I think there is a segment of fans that want that social interaction. Vocana has this very Facebook, Instagramist, MySpace, where there's a commenting, there's hubs for private groups to talk to people. You can direct message those artists, etc. They give updates. What we found, I mean, we were just in public beta now, right? We just came out. It took us 4 years to build this. is that people like to engage with other people, right? Music is better an experience when shared. So when you see these fans talking to other fans and sharing a song, it's great to see in the social feed that we have, hey, check out this band. They sound like some emo version of something else. And somebody else literally found that in that and was like, great, this is amazing. I just added them to a playlist. You can have some of that in other social aspects, but here it's all in one place, right? It's very easy to find a band, share it with another fan, and those fans are now interacting, become friends, and share other music. So I think it'll be subjective to the type of fan that we go after and market, but there is obviously a segment of people that go to shows and want to be close to their fans and interact with their artists and interact with them.
A hot topic in the DSP world right now is the influence of AI in this particular space, both in the form of AI bots that are manipulating people's stream counts. And there's been federal lawsuits and things like that have emerged recently, even criminal proceedings. And then now you have these the Velvet Sundown artists that are completely AI generated and fictional, infiltrating streaming platforms. And I know you've spoken in the past about how your platform has measures in place to mitigate those negative effects. I'd love for you to speak on that a bit.
Yeah, look, one thing that Vocano can do that's, I think, different because we have user-centric is if there is a bot can only extricate the subscription fee out of one bot, right? So if your subscription fee is $10, it doesn't matter if the bot runs Katie's song 1 billion times. They can never still make more than $10, right?
No, but this is an excellent point. I've been pounding the table on Break the Business about what you've just mentioned forever. I've had, and Katie, I've annoyed Katie to hell with this, but I have this recurring bit of just every single problem in music streaming could be solved with user-centric royalties. Indie artists aren't paid enough. User-centric royalties. Bots are manipulating streams. User-centric royalties. It is I know it's not a panacea, and I am kind of joking, but it does alleviate a lot of problems, including streaming fraud.
Yeah, and I will say, we'll take the AI part out of it. I think we're lucky that user-centric can kind of completely deflect the bot issue, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's other ways to be fraudulent in DSP worlds. But at the very heart of it, people were upset with bots that were running play counts up to get a larger share of the pro rata model. Obviously, user-centric just stops that cold because, as I mentioned, if I have a bot running on Katie's, I'd have to continually pay multiple subscriptions at $10, and the most I could get was $10 out of that subscription. So it does stop that cold. Now, does it stop any of the AI, and can you mitigate those things? Vocana itself as a streaming service can't. Can we flag stuff that's AI? Yes, but we have licensing deals in place, right? So we license all the content from DistroKid, CD Baby, all the major indie distributors, and they're the ones that are getting hit with the AI, right? People are, I think it's 30% of catalogs now are becoming AI. So I think, unfortunately, the AI issue lays at the door of the distributor because the streaming platform themselves could do due diligence and say, this song we think is AI. But if it's coming to the distributor from an independent artist that's just manufacturing streams at home, the distributor probably should have something as the middle person to stop that, unless they just don't care whether they're, distributing AI music or not. I'll be honest, I've listened to some AI music and I thought it was great, right? I mean, it should be great because it's supposed to be mimicking bands that are great. Yeah. In Vocana world, I think it will help on the fraud side. We've talked to multiple distributors that are getting pinged and dinged for fraud and getting, penalized, as you had mentioned, and that will help them. But on the AI front, I don't know if you can ever put that genie back in the bottle with these, who is it, Udio and Suno, all these companies that are coming out and populating. I think at some point,
but I mean, doesn't Vocana mitigate to some respect to the extent that your platform does seem to emphasize human-driven curation more than other DSPs do, right? If there's a human being that's helping curating what people are listening to more than at other DSPs, presumably that human is going to like hear Velvet Sundown and maybe not amplify it the way that an AI-driven algorithm over at Spotify did.
Yeah, well, so we have two ways to curate music, right? Most of it is human curated. So we are working with influencers, tastemakers, somebody like yourself, right? That has a background in music.
I'm a tastemaker, Katie Zaccardi. I've been telling you that forever.
Or Katie could be a tastemaker, right?
Well, you know, agree to disagree.
No, it's Ryan. It's Ryan.
somebody has that some certain level of acumen, right? Whether it be in a genre specific or something, and can create human curated playlists for us that would go on the home feed. I will say though that we do have a recommendation engine that if you do listen to a certain genre, you do like something, that AI that we have in there will recommend more artists for you. So there is some AI version of that, but it's not pulling AI songs for you. It's just an easier recommendation to find you stuff within our catalog that you may like. So yes, we lean on human curation a lot more than in, just trying to find AI songs and populating them at the top and not even knowing if they're AI or not, right?
Sorry, I'm just thinking about a DSP that has put me fully in control of deciding what music everybody gets to hear, being like the chief tastemaker of this DSP. It probably wouldn't make it more than a week, but I would, like, why is this DSP just keep sending me Ben Gibbard songs?
Yeah, you have to have a multi-level of different human curators and tastemakers in here because you're right. Like, people aren't going to want to listen to everything I would put out there for sure.
Well, maybe you've been doing this.
I don't know.
Our guest has been Neil Sheehan. He is the CEO of Vocana, a music streaming service built specifically for independent artists and their fans. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting vocana.co. It's in public beta now. Yes. Neil, before we let you go, we got one last question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
Being in the indie space for 27 years, I've always told people two things. Always say thank you to venue owners, booking agents, anybody that you may or may not know, because you don't know where that person's going to be in their career next, right? You never know who's listening and who can be somebody that's advantageous to your career. So be nice, be kind when you're going up the ladder. And two, you have to work harder than you think you need to work. Most artists get to a certain level and kind of plateau because either A, they've toured or they put out an EP and they think, well, I'm at this level now, somebody will discover me. Discovery is lightning in a bottle. You have to work harder than you think you're working. So if you think you're working hard that day, the next day you better work harder.
Well, with respect to your first piece of advice there, Neil, we do indeed thank you
for
being on the show this week and allowing us to benefit from your experience and your expertise. This has been a blast. Best of luck with the platform. Don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you on again real soon. Our thanks to Neil Sheehan and Katie Zaccardi. Our thanks to producer Abby. And our thanks to our viewers and listeners for checking out Break the Business. We'll see you next week.